welcome back or welcome to this week's episode. I have a couple, things to say that I might say or I might not. Who knows? I might go crazy, go stupid. Go crazy, go stupid. So yeah, this is Let's Talk About That with Tianji, and I'm your host, Tianji. Last episode I left off during January. And now today it's actually the end of June. Well, this upcoming week is going to be the end of June. So kind of let me explain what happened. Wow, I'm making it sound like it's like a big deal. Guess what's happened? This is what happened in the past 6 months and why I've been gone. I haven't been gone. I put out an episode on the beginning of April. Wow, it feels weird to talk about this because it feels so fresh. Like, it feels like it was just, like, there. And I don't know if I quite feel comfortable, like, sharing everything. But I feel like it's going to be really therapeutic for me to communicate how I felt recently and how I have been feeling and how I feel in this very moment and how I think I'm going to feel soon. And blah, 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 blah. So at the beginning of this year, I loved my job. I really did. I loved my job. I was in a relationship of sorts, kind of, I was seeing someone consistently, and I had my own apartment. I had money because I had a stable income and I could afford my rent and I could afford to meal prep and I could afford gas and utilities and parking and all of that. I was in a very, very, very blessed time. I was so incredibly happy. If I ever worried, if I ever stressed, it was about the smallest of things. It was about looking back, things that, didn't, oh my God, it's making me want to cry. I'm sorry, I'm probably going to cry in this episode. But I was truly so wrapped in and taken aback by things that now, given back, are problems. If I could time travel to the beginning of this year and do it all over again, in this moment, I would give almost anything to feel that level of peace that I did 5-6 months ago. My mental health was doing very well, and I was in a really, really blessed spot. I felt very secure. I felt very confident in myself. I felt like I knew everything that was going to happen. Actually, I felt like I knew exactly what was going to happen. I felt like I had the world in the palm of my hand. Like, I felt free. And, I've been listening to oh, ew, that was probably disgusting. I've been listening to the So True podcast by Caleb Heron, and in one of the episodes, he said he had been talking to his friends about if they had a perfect day, what that perfect day would look like. And he said that one stream that kind of flowed through all of people's perfect days was the ability to have freedom. A perfect day is not, to any person you ask, it's not about waking up at a certain time or waking up without your alarm or it being a Saturday or a Monday or a Wednesday. A perfect day to people is different to each person you might ask, because at the end of the day, it boils down to the level of freedom that you have. At the end of the day, people just want to feel free. People want to feel in control. People want to feel like they have that choice open and available to them. And that is how I felt in January. I truly felt like I had choice. I felt like I had domain. I felt like I was free to be able to explore and to understand and wrap my head around things that I didn't have the mental capacity to do before that. Because if you didn't know, I've always, since high school, I've struggled with really bad mental health problems. I have chronic anxiety, and I am prone to have depressive episodes and panic attacks. And the beginning of 2026 felt like a time where those were all on the decline, and I was able to really be in control and take a handle of my own life and take charge of my own life, and explore things at my own will and discover things at my own will. I felt free. And I worried about things that now I probably won't ever even bat an eye about, or who knows what's coming. But during the month of April, I had a big life-changing moment. I was communicated, well, not communicated, that's the wrong word. And do you see me really trying to be PR trained through this? I realized that I needed to have a career change. That really is what it boils down to. I was aware that I needed to, in the near future, switch the place that I was working at. And this happened at the beginning of April. And April was a very confusing month, because in realizing that I needed a career change, the floor that I was standing on felt like it crumbled right under my feet. I felt so unsafe and so fragile. So this was a big change for me, because I went from feeling like I had an incredibly safe support system to suddenly realizing everything was about to change. And you might say, T'Angie, but, finding a job is, it's hard, it's actually pretty hard in this economy, but, finding a job is hard, but, people find new jobs all the time. And I completely agree with that. People find new jobs all the time. People leave jobs all the time. People start new jobs all the time. But my fight or flight system flared up because I realized how hard it was for me to find the job I already had. And it also flared up because I realized I don't know anything about what my future is going to be in a couple months, in a couple weeks maybe. I realized everything I thought I knew about myself and about the place that I lived at and about the place that I worked at was now not a lie, but also might not be a fact in 2-3 months. Or actually, most certainly would not be the same in 2 to 3 months. And I became so scared. And my anxiety started to flare up really quickly and really intensely. I went from someone who felt independent and secure in their footing to someone who was not sure what their life would be soon, to someone who I would wake up and I would not know how that day was going to go. And I beat myself up about this a lot. You cannot imagine how much. Because I think, people start and end jobs all the time, but I didn't realize how much my life was about to change. And I can just I can recognize that I am very, very blessed, having been able to just go from one job directly to the next. So this takes me to May of this year, which is, as I'm recording this, less than 2 months ago. At the beginning of May, is when I got offered a job in Los Angeles, California. It was a really exciting day to have had that opportunity. And it was, a celebratory cost at the time. And that job required me to start at the beginning of June, which gave me about a month, to for lack of a better word, pack everything I had and move 2,500 miles across the country. At this time, me and my partner, significant other, partner, I feel like is the best word, because partner is kind of ambiguous. What is a partner? A partner can be anything. Kind of decided is not a good word, but we came to a conclusion that's a better word, that we would not be continuing our relationship long distance. At that moment, logically, I understood that. Logically, I understood that being 2,500 miles from somebody else was not, the best way to maintain a relationship, I guess, if that's how I can ration it. We've all heard the saying, amor de lejos es amor de pendejos. Like, I comprehended in my logical brain, that it wasn't a particularly feasible idea. And, I had this conversation with my friends about who do we consider our support systems and who are our most important support systems. And, one of my friends was like, I think my family is my number one of my support system, and then my friends, and then my partner. And then another one of my friends said, I think it's my friends, and then my partner, and then my family. And to me personally, I think when I do have a partner, it is my partner, and then my friends, and last my family, unfortunately. So although I understood in an A plus B equals C kind of sense that doing long distance was not feasible, and it was not efficient, and it was not what was best for our relationship, in all honesty, I did not feel like I could. Wow, this is going to sound kind of low, and I know that in a year I'm going to listen back to this and probably be like, what the hell is she saying? But I did not feel like I could do that. I felt like, my partner at the time was probably up to 70% of what drove my day-to-day. They were a really, really, really important pillar of my life. They made me feel strong and confident and smart. I felt understood. I felt cared for. I felt valued. I felt like there was something. And this relationship was different because in the past, I feel like I have not maybe felt needed. That is a really weird word to use, but it is like the word that comes to mind. I maybe in other relationships I didn't quite feel as it's not wanted. It's not wanted. Needed. I didn't feel as needed. And this past relationship made me feel really needed. It made me feel like my presence was appreciated. My presence was, enjoyed. My presence was really just all around something positive. And it is something I had not felt before. In other relationships, I knew that I was wanted. I knew that I was fun. I knew that I was interesting and smart and all these things. But it felt like my partners would be able to survive without me. It 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 felt like a bond where my partner would be fine. They would be okay. They would be able to be themselves, and they were very secure in their footing, and not to say that my last partner wasn't, but it felt like I wasn't maybe truly integrated into their support system the way that they were into mine. I, dealing with chronic anxiety, I've I've always felt almost a little bit of a burden when I have to deal with, such an overthinker mind and such a 1,000 miles per hour mind. I've always felt a little bit like I'm sorry that you have to deal with the million thoughts that go through my brain every second. And I'm sorry you have to deal with. And I feel this way about everybody around me, besides my partners. I think my partners are the one person who I'm usually like, you are able to deal with this. Sorry, I went to blow my nose, but I'm back. But yeah, and part of me feels almost sad. Part of me feels sad for myself. I truly do. And it's hard trying to simply exist, having so much anxiety, and on top of that, feeling sad for the fact that I can't deal with it by myself. If that makes any sense. Um, but and honestly, the whole theme of today's episode and everything that I wanted to I don't know, touch on is simply the fact that I was so enthralled and so in like I felt when Emma Chamberlain said that her ex her fingers in had their fingers in between every single fold of Emma's brain. I felt like that. I I was deeply and madly in love. I could feel how this person was making me alter my behaviors to adapt and to mold to be able to be my best self and to push me to truly be someone admirable and someone I wanted to be someone that my partner was truly proud of. I wanted to be, and I still do. I still do. Don't get me wrong. To an extent, I really still do. I was striving to, how do I put this? I was striving to keep everything that was going on in my life together. I was striving to be able to be in control and take care of things by myself. I was striving to not be a burden. I was striving to be a relief. I wanted to be someone who, when you come to at the end of the day, you feel, makes you feel calm and makes you feel collected and put together. But because I had just found out that in 30 days, I had to pack every single thing I owned, move across, 3 time zones, and move to a new city where I knew no one and where I was starting a brand new job, which was exciting. But then at the same time, I knew no one, which really scared me. And at the same time, I had never been in LA. So it was sad about the fact that I was going to be 2,500 miles from anything I knew. I was going to be in a setting that I had never been before. I was going to be away from my family. Like, after I had them 40 minutes away from me, now I have them a 5-hour flight away from me. I have my best friends a 5-hour flight away from me. I was trying to keep myself in line and keep myself together when nothing in my life felt like it was together. I would wake up every day not knowing what I was going to pack that day. I would wake up not knowing how many things would fit in my car. I would wake up trying to save. Save is the wrong word. Preserve? Yeah, preserve is better. I would wake up trying to keep and preserve this relationship that I was in. And at the same time, say goodbye to it because I knew that we were ultimately not gonna be together. And then I would go to work and I would sit there for 8 hours, focusing on my job and not trying to think about if I was going to ship my car, if I was going to drive my car, if I was going to fly there, what things I would get rid of, if I would get a storage unit, what part of town I would live in. Who was going to drive with me if I was going to drive by myself? And the way things played out ultimately was unfortunate. It really was. So, it was, and this is what I beat myself up on, but at the same time, I really need to recognize that oh wow, I can't even really say it, but at the end of the day, I was trying my best and I still am. And so it led to a negative cycle of I am trying my best, but my life keeps getting more stressful. So therefore, it must mean that my best is not enough for this moment. And that's a really sad thing to think. I hope nobody thinks that. And, if you're thinking that right now, it really truly isn't true. It truly, believe me, it is not true. It might seem like it's true, but it's not true. So that's why I beat myself up. Because I'm like, well, getting a new job can be hard and challenging and scary, leaving an old job. But, people do it all the time. People get new jobs all the time. And then I think about, well, moving, it can be hard and scary. And, people do it all the time. And moving to a new city might be hard and scary, but people do it all the time. And, moving to a different state might be even harder and even scarier, but people do it all the time. Moving across the country, might be hard, and it is scary and it is hard, but people have done it. People have done it, people will do it, and it happens all around us. And it's really annoying on my part, because if I met someone who was doing all of that, I would be incredibly proud of them. I think it is a huge achievement. But I could only, in that moment, hone in to each specific part. Because all of that can be hard and scary. And, having to move away from where you lived for 5 years to not be anywhere you've been before might be hard and scary. And fucking going through a breakup is incredibly hard. It's incredibly hard. No, I don't think I've ever gone through a breakup where I go, well, and that was that. Anyways, let's move on with life, ladies and gentlemen. Maybe some people have. It is just not who I am. And on top of that, at the end of the day, I have to realize that I did all those things at the same time. I started a new job. I moved across the country. I packed everything I owned into one car worth. I broke up with my partner. Well, I ended my relationship with my partner. The relationship with my partner ended. That's the better word. And I did it all in 1 month. So May was one of the hardest months I've gone through since, like, I don't know, probably since my father passed, honestly. I was starting to get chest pains, and I was having panic attacks, and I was getting paralyzed by fear to the point where I was eating less, and I was stressing so much more, and things weren't getting done. And because things weren't getting done, I was getting more stressed, and I did not feel supported the way I wanted, I guess. I needed a very specific kind of support, I think, that I did not feel like I was receiving. And, that is no one's fault. I can recognize right now that everybody's trying their best and everybody can only do so much. And I know that everybody tried so hard to help me, and so many people did, and they made my life so much easier, even though it was still really hard, than what it would have been if I had to go through all that alone. I completely recognize that. So having all of that, and then the journey of what ultimately was, moving across the country, was, and kind of is, something I do not wish upon my worst enemy. But yeah, I don't know. And I'll make another episode about living in LA and what it's been like, because I live in LA now. I live in LA. I went to Malibu today. I go to Beverly Hills. I get to live such a blessed life. And I sound like one of those influencers at the beginning of their hauls where they're like, I just want to say thank you to everybody who supported me, blah, 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 blah. But it is true. At the end of the day, I can recognize I live in Los Angeles, one of the biggest cities in the United States. A place with so much culture and so much diversity and so much opportunity that most people will never see in their lifetime, that I had never seen until I found out I had to move. I get to experience a life that so many people wish for and pray for and would give so much to have. And I beat myself up because to me, I'm like, well, this is so hard. You should be grateful. But, if there's anything I want you to take away from this episode, it's that just because you might think that what you're doing is easy, or because somebody else would think that what you're doing is easy, does not mean that you can discredit your hard work. And you should be proud of everything you've been able to do. If that is quite literally getting up from bed this morning, brushing your teeth is huge. If you brush your teeth today, I am beyond proud of you. I am so, good job. You did great. If you took a shower, if you went to work, if you got out of your room today, that is an achievement that I can recognize can be really hard at times. And yeah, Wait, I don't want to end this episode crying. One time there was a chicken that breathed through its butt. It sat down and died. And that is my joke of the day. That was so bad. But yeah, thank you for listening, and I'll maybe talk to you guys next week. I don't know. I'll let you know. Bye.